morning, and welcome to episode 23 of the Jacksonian. As I am your host, yours truly, Jackson Johnson, the host of Jacksonian, and I have with me is the host of Locked On Ducks, Locked On PAC12, the announcer of Southern Utah Athletics, the one and only Spencer McLaughlin.
Hey Jackson, good to be on with you, man. Love the shout out of the T-Birds, by the way. Big game on Saturday night at the AFEC. Southern Utah women's basketball playing number 11 Utah, and I'm excited to be on the call for that one. Should be well, it'll be a tough game. it'll be a tough game, is what it is. But it is still college football season, principally for most people, and always good to be on talking.
Oh, thank you for coming on, man, and it's an honor giving a shout-out to Southern Utah Athletics. And I tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I work for Southern Utah, and I've hosted these two shows for Locked On for different amounts of time. I started Locked On Pac-12 in April of 2022 and Locked On Ducks in December of 2021, and they've, thankfully grown into a place that I frankly didn't. I didn't know what to expect when I started with Locked On, but it's gotten me to a place where I was at the Pac-12 championship game in early December down in Las Vegas, covering that with a media credential, which is the first time I've ever covered an Oregon football game with a credential before. So that was a pretty awesome experience and whatnot. And yeah, I wake up thinking about this stuff, all the time. Like I go to bed thinking about like literally my head will be on a pillow and I'll be like, man, what happens if this quarterback goes to this spot? Then I'm like, Spencer, turn it off for just like 2 minutes. Just like, dude, just go to sleep. But I can't get enough of this stuff. College football is the greatest sport in the world. I'm privileged to cover it.
Well, I will say when the expansion was happening, my mom was like, Jack, you gotta go to bed. I'm like, don't tell me that. Tell Colorado and Arizona that. They won't quit it with the expansion news.
Yeah, that was a whirlwind and a half, and it's gonna be real next year. Like it's gonna be there in front of us, and we're gonna have these wacky, non-geographically relevant conferences and whatnot and super leagues, and it's the Big Ten and the SEC looking down at everybody else in just the gap between the top two and the next two, boy, it is massive. Like the SEC's always had an advantage, but those two conferences have pulled away from the ACC and the Big 12 in a substantial way in this realignment.
Man, I will say next year's playoff is just going to be SEC and Big Ten going, how about me, balls? Oh, yeah, one for you. And me, balls? One for you. And me, balls? Oh, yeah, one for you. How about me, balls? Nope, AC, you'll get nothing and like it.
Well, you'll get the conference champion in. You'll have the conference champions will automatically get in there, and that will probably be. I mean, if you just pull up, let me pull up the top 12 real quick. Right now in college football, right? This year 12-team playoff, you'd have Liberty in, which repulses me to my core. You would have Michigan, you would have Washington, you would have Texas, you would have Alabama. There's 5. The ACC champion FSU, there is 6. So you would have those 6 teams automatically in, and then you would have Ohio State, Big Ten. You would have Oregon, Pac-12, Missouri, SEC, Penn State, Big Ten, Ole Miss, SEC, and then Oklahoma is sitting there at number 12. Maybe the Big 12 would get a second team in there. But also in the grand scheme of things, as you look ahead to realignment in the playoff and whatnot, how many non-Big Ten SEC schools did we just list in there for the 12 teams? Liberty and Florida State. That's the list.
Yeah.
So they'd have 10 of 12 in this year, unless I'm missing something in there, and I don't think I am. So, yeah, I mean, it's those two and everybody else, and it feels like we're headed towards 2 super conferences one day, but I don't think that day is as soon as everybody thinks.
Yeah, but speaking of Liberty, speak of the devil, we'll be talking a little bit about the Fiesta Siesta Bowl between the Oregon Donald Ducks and Liberty, and What and also the Sugar Bowl between the Washington Huskies and Texas Longhorns and some of the other bowl games. What's your take on all of them?
Yeah, I love bowl season. I am, a college football sicko. I am an old school fan. I am an old soul as well. So, I remember as an Oregon fan growing up when the Ducks went to the Holiday Bowl, when it was the number two bowl, I think, in the, structure and everything and where teams went, and they played Oklahoma State, and it was like a top 17 matchup.
Oh,
And
that was 2008 on ESPN.
I think it was 2008. That sounds right. Yeah, because then Masoli was the starter the next season. 2007 was the Sun Bowl, and 2008 they played
CBS with South Florida.
That is correct. Yeah. Wow. Nice callbacks there. Those were really good. Those are a couple of good pulls from you, Jackson, in the old
And
Oregon memory
unfortunately,
bank.
that was the year where you guys lost Dennis Ditson in an injury against
Yeah,
Arizona on
yeah.
Thursday
I,
night
I I
football.
try not. That is one of the five greatest what ifs in Oregon sports history. There's Dennis Dixon, Michael Dyer, Chris Boucher. There are several, but I going back to the bowl season stuff. I remember in 2008, Oregon was ranked like somewhere in the like 13 to 17 range, and so too was Oklahoma State. And I was excited to watch that matchup, and I really wanted to win. I really wanted to win the game because I knew it would set up Oregon for success the following year. And then it was building, a resume and building a brand really as a team. And I know that your preseason ranking matters, and how you performed in that bowl game was, kind of step one towards what you were going to be in the eyes of the AP voters the following season. And now everybody just goes into these bowl games, and a lot of people don't want to care. And I think people care more than, the narrative actually looks to portray, because I think that for a lot of teams, like go look at the viewership on these bowl games. They're still going to get, for the lower level bowl games, you're still going to have hundreds of thousands of people watching. For the higher level bowl games with better matchups, you're still going to have millions of people watching. You're still going to have tens of thousands of people in attendance. You know why? Because it turns out college football is fun, and it's an entertaining product, and people like watching it, and you don't get that many chances to do so. And for Oregon, they've been at a high level for the last 15 years or so. And yeah, playing in the Fiesta Bowl when they were good enough to play in, the college football playoff or maybe win a national championship. Yeah, that's a little bit of a letdown, to be sure. But guess what? People are still going to tune in and watch Oregon play Liberty because, hey, what if Liberty is that sort of good? What if they're becoming, a G5 power? Or is Oregon just going to thump them? Or are they not ready? Like, there are still some storylines there. And I love bowl season just because I love college football. And in just a few short weeks, Jackson, we're going to look up and we're going to have no college football to watch. None. Absolutely none. Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. Is no good. And so I'm going to take every chance I get to watch games that I care about. And on those particular matchups, I think that the Oregon Liberty game is about how many points is Oregon going to win by, because I think that Liberty is a good team, and they're going to be playing with their hair on fire. It might be the biggest game in the history of their program. I think Liberty could cover. The point spread's up to like 17.5. I might lean Liberty there, although with Bo Nix and Bucky Irving playing at running back for the Ducks, that makes me think that Oregon will be fairly motivated. Troy Franklin hasn't announced he's going to the NFL yet. I suspect he will, but it looks like he's going to play in the bowl game too. Oregon at full strength, I think they've just got a lot better players than Liberty does. So I think that, the advantage is there. The motivation level is what you're certainly going to question with the Ducks, but not the talent level that they have. As for the Sugar Bowl, I think it's going to be an awesome game. I mean, just Washington, Texas,
Quarterback battle.
sign me up. Just sign me up for it, because I think that it is. I think both teams are going to be over 30 points. And Washington's, 2 games against Oregon this year, and even going back to last season when I think Washington was a pretty similar team, a very good one. I think that they, are a team that is really good offensively, good enough defensively. But Oregon had over 30 points on them in every one of those games. And you give Steve Sarkisian, who's a great play caller, time to scheme an offense and, set a game plan for his team with Quinn Ewers, and Xavier Worthy might not play, but they got a lot of great weapons. And I know that they don't have Brooks at running back. They're going to be able to run the football with at least some modicum of success. And I think you've got 2 great offenses going at it against a couple of defenses that are hit and miss. And I think both defenses are going to be closer to missing in this game than they are hitting. And I think you're going to have some fireworks. And I think Washington wins in a close one, but gosh, I think it's going to be a great game.
Man, that's going to be great that we're seeing the 2022 Alamo Bowl rematch in the Sugar Bowl in the Superdome.
Yeah, I know. And the crazy thing too is that last year's Alamo Bowl game, if you look at the rosters and how many players return, there are so many similarities. I mean, there are just a bunch of them. I'm pretty sure Quinn Ewers played in that game, if memory serves. Michael Penix did, and all the receivers. There are like over 20 returning players on both rosters, which in today's world of college football, you just don't see that very often. So I think that makes it even more intriguing. And there is a nostalgic part of me that would have liked to have seen Washington and Michigan get matched up in the Rose Bowl, but that just wasn't feasible given their records because they're clearly the top. They clearly should be the top 2 seeds. They went unbeaten this year. So I wish you could see that, but it is what it is. And I think both games are going to be great, but that Washington Texas game, that's going to be highly entertaining.
Well, and also wanted to go over a little bit about the good, bad, and the ugly of the 2023 Oregon season. And what were the surprises and disappointments of the 2023 Pac-12 football season?
Yeah, I think the biggest disappointment in the Pac-12 has to be USC, right? I mean, 7-5. You got Caleb Williams back there. You're going 7-5, and look, I didn't think that USC was, going to go as, Mark Colkin, our Locked On Trojans host, predicted. He thought they were going 15-0. He thought they were getting to the playoff, running the table and whatnot. And I didn't think that because Alex Grinch was their defensive coordinator. And the Pac-12 has got too many good quarterbacks and too many good offenses, and they're not going to get enough stops. Now, I thought they'd be better than 7-5.
Obviously.
I really did. And the fact that they weren't is a testament to how bad Alex Grinch was. And you know what? They went out and made a really good hire, getting D'Anton Lynn as their defensive coordinator from UCLA. That guy is fantastic. He did an outstanding job. He gave Chip Kelly the best defense I think Chip Kelly's ever had in his time as a college football coach. And unfortunately, the Bruins were in a transition year at quarterback, which is how I felt about him before the year. And that's exactly how it played out. And I predicted their record right on the money at 7-5 because I thought they don't have enough quarterback play in the best quarterback conference in America. And guess what? They didn't have good enough quarterback play, and everybody else did. So I think that was a bit of a wasted opportunity for the Bruins, and now they've let D'Anton Lynn go. I think that is a mistake on their part to allow that to happen. But bringing it back to USC, your preseason top 10 team, and you end the year 7-5. They almost lost to Cal. They lost to UCLA, who was, a decent but not great team. Like, that is a Texas A&M level of disappointment when you look at their expectations. So I think that was certainly the biggest disappointment in the conference. I think that Arizona was a surprise to a lot of people. Again, was not as big of a surprise to me. Now, they outperformed my expectations. I thought they were a 7-5 team. I did not see 9-3 coming. And by the way, their Alamo Bowl against Oklahoma, you can bet your rear end that Arizona is going to come out with their hair on fire because they're trying. You talk about bowl games that still mean something to people. That game means something to Arizona. I guarantee it. There is when you are in the midst of a program build, I think that's where you get the biggest stakes for the non-championship factor bowl games. When you're a program like Arizona that is not playing down to the Alamo Bowl, but is playing up to the Alamo Bowl and hasn't been bowl eligible in some time, and a chance for a 10-win season and to end the year with 7 straight wins, that is a huge, huge opportunity for the Wildcats. And Jed Fish has done a fantastic job over the last couple of years. He got votes for Pac-12 Coach of the Year. I understand why he wasn't a co-coach of the year with Kalen DeBoer. I think there was an argument for it, but DeBoer did something that had never been done in the history of the conference. So I don't think you can fault the voters too much there, but I understand it. And Jed Fish was really good and is really good. And the season they had with Noah Fafita coming in for the injured Jaden DeLora, if they end with 7 straight wins and a 10th win this year, with Noah Fafita coming back and Teta Rowan McMillan coming back and a bunch of other players back next year for the Wildcats, and we don't know what they're going to do this offseason yet in terms of improving their roster, which they improved a lot this offseason already. Coming into this year, that game, I would bet if I were a gambling man, I'd be betting Arizona in that game because their motivation level to play that Alamo Bowl is a lot higher than Oklahoma's. Oklahoma beat Texas, remember, in that Red River Showdown, and then they fell off with 2 losses to Oklahoma State and Kansas. That's not what they wanted. They don't have Dylan Gabriel anymore. Arizona's playing for a lot more than Oklahoma in that game. I think the Wildcats could let that one get ugly.
Well, I know that your boys, Oregon, snatched up Dylan Gabriel from the transfer portal. Now, Bo Nix will be starting in his 61st career start in the Fiesta Bowl. And right now, Dylan Gabriel's got 49 career starts. For next season, he could break that record. What was your reaction? What was your reaction when the Donald Ducks got Dylan Gabriel?
Yeah, he's good. He's a good quarterback. He is capable. He can get Oregon to the playoff. They can compete for a conference, and if the rest of the team is good enough, a national championship with him, yeah, they can do all of those things. I don't think this is going to be a Bo Nix scenario in which you have a player who, had some untapped potential at his previous stop and is going to then come to Oregon, get an actual supporting cast, and then start to be really good. At Auburn, Bo Nix was having to play hero ball all the time. He didn't have time to throw. He had good but not great receivers. He didn't have a running game. He was, undergoing coaching changes all the time, and they didn't have the right guy down there. He goes up to Oregon and is dealing with a completely different set of circumstances. Well, last year Oklahoma was not good. That much is true. I don't think that was on Dylan Gabriel, though. And I think he's got a good supporting cast around him at Oklahoma. And they're a 10-2 football team. And they beat Texas, and Texas is a really good football team. So, in that sense, I think that Gabriel is a lot closer to his ceiling. If you graded Dylan Gabriel as a player and his potential on a scale of 1 to 10, I think we've seen a 9 out of 10 from him. So there isn't really that much of another year. There could be a little bit, but I don't think a ton. Bo Nix at Auburn was like a 3 out of 10. And then we saw him get elevated up to his full potential with the Ducks. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. He's big, good arm, mobile. And then after he had all the experience at Auburn, he came to Oregon, was just as cerebral a quarterback as, the Ducks have had over the last couple of decades. And Gabriel certainly is an experienced veteran guy as well. But Gabriel is smaller, does not have as big of an arm, is not as fast as Bo Nix, but he's got a good enough arm. He is an accurate thrower of the football. He is a good facilitator, and I think that he fits Will Stein's offense very well. So I think that the fit is logical. I think the fit is good. Oregon can do well. I do not expect Dylan Gabriel to be a Heisman contender next year, and I don't think Oregon necessarily will need him to be.
Speaking of Heisman contenders, what was your reaction to the Heisman Trophy when Bo Nix finished third, Michael Penix was in second, to former Pac-12 quarterback Jaden Daniels?
Well, my first reaction was, why was Marvin Harrison Jr. there? Nobody knows. We know. The answer is preseason hype. Why did he win the Biletnikoff? Preseason hype. He did not lead the country in receptions, yards, or touchdowns, and yet he won the Biletnikoff and was a Heisman finalist. That does not actually make any logical sense. But the preseason hype was there, warranted, by the way, but the Heisman voters just never backed off of that for reasons that I do not particularly agree with. And the Biletnikoff voters also, that's just a whiff. That is an absolute whiff. Marvin Harrison is great. He might be the best NFL prospect, a wide receiver, in a long time. He was not the best receiver in college football this year. I'm sorry. That's just true. He did not have the best season of any receiver in college football. That's a fact. So I think that part was puzzling. But, when Penix outduels Bo Nix, and sure, the team component is there, but Penix was great in both games, had the game-winning drive in Seattle, was really good from the jump in the Pac-12 title game, whereas Bo Nix got off to a slow start, and the offense didn't have a first down until the second quarter. Yeah, Penix is going to finish ahead of Bo Nix. So at that point in time, once Penix beat him for the second time this season, it was between Penix and Jaden Daniels, and SEC bias knows no bounds. And I think that's what came into play there, because if you have a guy who threw for 40 touchdowns and over 4,000 yards for a 13-0 SEC team, there's no way that guy isn't winning the Heisman. Stetson Bennett finished as a finalist but did not win last year. He had over 4,000 yards passing. He had 27 touchdown passes. So his numbers were just not quite as good. And I don't think that he was as important to his team as Penix was to Washington this year. I think Penix had a really good case to win the Heisman Trophy, and he didn't get it because Jaden Daniels was padding stats against, Army and Georgia State, and he plays in the SEC. It really is that simple. Is LSU, once they lost their second game, they realized, okay, we are not going to make the playoff, so we need to do everything we can to raise brand awareness of LSU football since we're not playing in nationally relevant games. How do you do that? You have a Heisman Trophy winner. And he didn't play in any, big games this year compared to what Penix played in, because the big games he played in, or the big games that he did play in, rather, he lost. They had some good wins. LSU's a good team. They're not a great team. They're not as good as Washington. And I know that because Washington's in the playoff and LSU is playing in the I don't know what bowl, though it could be a very, very fun one, depending on who the matchup is with.
Quest Bowl against Wisconsin, I believe.
Oh, gosh, Wisconsin's not going to be able to score. Not at the same rate that LSU can. Oh, gosh, give me the Tigers in that game. I think LSU's a fine team. Or I think Wisconsin, rather, is a fine team. LSU's defense is atrocious. Wisconsin doesn't score like that. That is a horrible, horrible matchup for the Badgers. Any idea what the point spread is? Any idea what the point spread is in that game?
It's 9. LSU -9.
Yeah. I'll take the Tigers by 2 touchdowns.
I got the title right? ReliaQuest?
I think so. Yeah, I'd have to look at it, but the bowl names are always changing and whatnot. But I take the Tigers in that one. I don't know how many people out there are gamblers, but for what it's worth, I hit on my Pac-12 Prime picks this year 52% on my show, so respectable, not great, but respectable. And I think that I think LSU and Washington, I think those are a good couple of bets. Washington's an underdog by like 4.5. I'd take that all day.
Oh, I'm not going against Washington. They'll bite me like a chicken nugget. I'll tell you right now. They will chew me up like Cujo.
They are a good football team. Very good football team.
But I was thinking about this season being the last season of the Pac-12. Do you think this is similar to the last season of the Southwest Conference from 1995? I mean, this season has obviously been better than the 1995 season of the Southwest Conference, but what's your take?
Well, I wasn't around for the Southwest Conference, so that's something I can only read. That's something I can only read about in the history books because I hadn't been born yet. So, I mean, conferences have come and gone before, and the Pac-12 is just it's technically the latest one, though. There are a lot of different options as for what can happen next. Oregon State and Washington State have set their schedules for next year. There is a world in which they could rebuild the Pac. That is a very real possibility. 100% feasible.
Yeah.
Is it gonna happen? That's a different question. Yeah. But is it possible? Is it can you lay out step by step after the legal ruling that they got earlier today how they could get the Pac back to being 8 or 10 or 12 teams and being the premier group of 5 conference in America? Yes, that can happen.
Yeah, I've been wondering what's going to happen with them because, I mean, their schedules seem to be set for next year, although we don't have the dates yet.
No, we don't have dates for all the games, but we know who they're playing.
Right.
It's a Mountain West plus schedule, essentially. You got 6 Mountain West teams, a handful of Power 4 teams, and then they play each other as well.
Well, I know Oregon State's got a home and home with California for 2024 and 2025. But I will say, though, I'm happy that the Civil War, or as I like to call it, the Gravity Falls Bowl between Oregon State. Love that show. But also noticed that the Apple Cup is coming back. What's your take
Hmm.
on both of these rivalries coming back for the next few years? I hope that it's annual.
Yeah, I mean that's the plan. There are at least two Civil War games on the docket. Presumably there could be more. I don't think it's a bad thing though to play the game for 2 years and have that scheduled and then kind of see how it feels and determine if both sides want it to continue. I personally like it would too. I would like it to continue. English is a stupid language. Sorry, but
That's all right.
I think that for the state of Oregon, that game means a lot. And no, it's not going to feel the same as it once did, but that doesn't mean that it can't still have a lot of familiar feels and a lot of great things about it. And I'm a fan of history and tradition and pageantry and whatnot. And that's all being thrown by the wayside in college football. So any chance you get to keep it alive, like these rivalry games are doing, yeah, I'm on board with it. And I know that Oregon State, Washington State fans look at it and say, well, this is just not um this is not something we want to do. They're leaving us behind. Screw them and everything like that. I I get that. That is a valid perspective to feel. You don't have a lot of options though when it comes to scheduling quality Power Four opponents. And if you have the chance to ensure that, you may not like it. It may not feel good. You might lose the game far more often than not. But both of those schools were already doing that anyway. So you have to leap at that opportunity.
But I do hope that Oregon and Washington they can play like another Power Five alongside Oregon State and Washington State. That would be pretty cool though. That'd
If
be pretty
Oregon and
cool.
Washington did, wait, say that again.
Yeah, if Oregon had Oregon State and another Power Five game on their non-con schedule, if Washington had Washington State and another Power Five game,
Yeah, except now that they're going to a super loaded Big Ten, they don't need to do that. Like to build a quality schedule or have a good resume, they don't need to do that. And by the way, I don't think we know yet what sort of win Washington State or Oregon State will be. I think both of those programs could in the Mountain West win 9, 10, or in a good year, 11 games. And we have seen Mountain West teams that win 9, 10, 11 games be ranked inside the top 25 regularly. And
true.
these teams actually have schedules, the Bees and the Cougs, that are better than what a typical Mountain West team has. So if you're Oregon State, Washington State, like take Oregon State, for instance, their schedule next year, they've got 6 Mountain West teams, they've got an FCS bye game, and then they've got 4 games against the power 4 or 5, or maybe it's
Purdue,
7.
California, Oregon, and somebody else.
There is somebody else, and I'm forgetting who. Washington State. What like and they play Washington. Okay, if you have, let's say Oregon State loses to Oregon because
Yeah.
the Beavs are going to be having a reset year. Oregon should be really good next year. Let's say they lose that game. If Oregon State has a win over a Cal team in the ACC, a Purdue team in the Big Ten, a Washington State team that in a Mountain West plus schedule is, I don't know, 8-4 or something like that, 8-4, 9-3. How is that team at 10-2 or 11-1 with multiple Power 5 wins and a loss to a potentially top 10 Oregon team? How is that team not ranked in the top 25? Like look at the standards. Liberty is in there in the top 25 playing the worst FBS schedule in the country. Yeah, so like if you have multiple Power 4 wins and a really, really quality loss, yeah, you can be in the top. I mean, you can be in the playoff discussion. I think 11-1 for either of those teams with their schedules next year puts them in the playoff discussion. They would need some help. They would need other teams to do well, but it is 100% possible.
That is for sure. I mean, I do kind of wonder if the Mount West can throw their name as a future power conference. I mean, they kind of
No, they
should.
won't. No, they can't do that. But they can get access to the playoff if they can generate the highest ranked G5 champion.
Well, I will say, whoever comes out of the Mount West is definitely going to be better than Liberty. That's for sure.
Well, they will have played a tougher schedule than Liberty, but I mean, Liberty's clearly a good football team.
Oh yeah. But
Yeah, I'm curious to see him in the Fiesta Bowl. I think everybody kind of wants to see that
I'm
because
kind of
Tulane got a bunch of street cred winning the Cotton Bowl against USC as they should have.
right.
So, that's just the way it goes.
I'm kind of getting some 2008 Sugar Bowl vibes in the 2024 Fiesta Bowl.
The '08 Fiesta Bowl, that was Utah, right?
The 08 Sugar Bowl was
Or '08
Georgia
Sugar Bowl.
Hawaii. Georgia had
Oh,
the
Georgia
black
Hawaii.
uniform.
Yeah, with Colt Brennan. Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one.
Yeah, I remember my Uncle Ken was watching that game. He was like, Hawaii's got their feelings hurt. And I was like, oh, man, that was funny. But as we wrap this show up, and for those who would like to get their Pac-12 expertise or their Oregon Donald Duck expertise, where can they find you, man?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Smalls_55, and I host Locked On Ducks and Locked On Pac-12 Monday through Friday on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcasts as well. And I'm always putting out as much content as I possibly can for people. Our motto at the Locked On Network is your team every day, and it's Monday through Friday. It's all year round as well. There is no such thing as Josh Pate says as an off season because college football it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, and I forgot this for a moment, but you can also check out Spence McLaughlin as he calls some of the best games for Southern Utah athletics, and you can be able to check it out on ESPN Plus and all that sort of stuff. And we here at the Jacksonian will definitely be pulling for Southern Utah women's basketball to pull off the upset over Utah women's basketball.
Big
Sorry,
opportunity.
Utah. Nothing personal against Utah.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think that the Thunderbirds are going to come out and play their butts off. Like that's just kind of an MO of a Tracy Mason coach team, and I think that Utah is really good. Like they lost Gianna Neepkins, and that stinks, but they're still a Sweet 16, Elite 8, maybe even Final Four caliber team. With the potential National Player of the Year in Alyssa Peely. So, if Southern Utah pulls that upset, that's probably the second biggest win in program history behind third, behind two of their wins in the conference tournament last year when they went to the big dance for the first time. So, thrilled to get to call that one and can't wait for it.
There you go, man. I hope that Southern Utah can pull off some upsets, and who knows, maybe in men's college basketball, they can be that net 16th seed team that could pull off the upset over
it's
Purdue.
March. What you just got to get to March. Anything could happen.
Man, if they play Purdue, I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna be like, Purdue's gonna get upset.
Well, it's happened a time or two before.
Oh, it always happens to them. But until next time, you can like, comment, subscribe to @JacksonJohnson979 on YouTube. You can also give me a follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, where I give latest updates on the latest episodes of the Jacksonian, and I also just run my mouth about what's going on in college football, NFL, pop culture, so on and so forth. And until next time, this is Jackson Johnson wishing everybody a good night, and stay safe and stay warm. It's cold out.